A silent march commemorating the brutally murdered Claudia. From the old market square in Toruń, Poland, to the local park, it was there that an illegal immigrant from Venezuela stood in the Polish woman's way and brutally took her life. I came here primarily to commemorate Claudia, who was brutally murdered in the park on her way home from work. For me, it is simply unthinkable that in Poland, a person cannot feel safe, that after a hard day's work, one wants to go home and such a tragedy can happen. So that we pay attention to what is really happening in our country. This is a very important moment. I think that every woman, in fact entire families, should take part in such events. We are here to show our opposition to the treatment of Poles in our country, as was the case with this girl who was brutally raped and murdered by an immigrant. We oppose this. We oppose illegal migration and such treatment of Poles in our own country. Claudia was only 24 years old and had her whole life ahead of her. But all the dreams and plans of this beautiful and talented girl, a doctoral student at the Nicholas Copernicus University in Toruń, were taken away by an illegal immigrant. A Venezuelan stabbed her dozens of times. She fought her attacker and then fought for her life in the hospital. But her injuries proved fatal. This could affect any one of us, any one of our loved ones, any one of our families. We must be here to protest against this brutality. It was a silent march, but in reality, it was a loud cry of protest. Poles do not agree with the migration policy pushed through by Donald Tusk and the December 13th coalition, which involves bringing illegal and dangerous migrants, rapists, murderers, and criminals to our country. I am afraid for my future. I am afraid for my immediate family, for my friends. I also have a little grandson, and I am afraid for him too. Poland is currently experiencing its first tragedies related to mass immigration. This tragic situation in Toruń reminded me of the attack that took place in Marseille in October 2017. A Tunisian immigrant rushed with a knife shouting Allahu Akbar at two young 20-year-old girls at the main train station. These two girls, Laura and Moran, died in terrible suffering, in a terrible torment. Just like Claudia, but as TV Republica learned tonight, another immigrant, a 29-year-old Colombian, fatally stabbed a 41-year-old Polish man in the town of Nowe in the Kujawian-Pomerian province during a fight in a bar. 10 people were detained in connection with the case, including 5 Colombian citizens. If we don't take matters into our own hands, then the government will definitely not be able to handle it, and it won't go in the right direction. What else has to happen in Europe or Poland? How many rapes? How many deaths? How much misery must there be for Donald Tusk to understand that he cannot stop the border guard, the police, and the army from carrying out normal protective and defensive activities? Because it is very dangerous. Migrants are arriving in Poland from unknown places and for unknown reasons. And these migrants are bringing misfortune. Poles in their cities and towns see what Donald Tusk is turning a blind eye to. People care above all about their own safety and that of their families, their loved ones, their children, their daughters. What happened in Germany, Belgium, and France is already beginning to happen in Poland. The next stage was terror, violence, rape, and riots on the streets of French, Belgian, and German cities. Today, illegal immigrants rule many neighborhoods with brute force. There are so many of them that nothing can be done. A dramatic increase in crime and murder rates. In Germany, for example, immigrants from Syria or Pakistan commit 4 times as many crimes. In France, foreigners commit 3 times as many murders as French people. So the narrative about integration, that these people can be integrated and that future generations will be integrated, is not true. The worst thing is that behind the backs of Poles, Donald Tusk obediently carried out the orders of the new German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, to quietly accept illegal immigrants smuggled by Germany without discussion. And this is what happens every day, also with the consent of the entire December 13th coalition. I quote Katarzyna Kotula, "I am ready to take migrants under my roof, so I appeal to the minister to implement what she said. Please provide your private address. Currently in Szczecin and Świnoujście, Germany is sending us dozens of migrants every day, so I hereby commit to transporting all these migrants to Mrs. Kotula's home. Alternatively, I appeal to Mr. Tomasz Siemoniak to also provide his private address, if he believes that nothing is happening." Dariusz Matecki, a member of the Law and Justice Party, described the entire migration process that has been taking place in Szczecin and the surrounding area for weeks. The Germans bring whoever they want to the Polish border. They get off the buses. We have recordings. I am currently publishing daily recordings of the Germans transporting migrants in unmarked buses. 6, 7, 8 citizens from Somalia, Eritrea, and various African countries get off. They are received by border guard officers, put on buses, and taken to a facility in Szczecin. Something unbelievable is happening there. These people are given residence cards. This is an example of where fictitious data is entered. Later, they end up in Polish cities, towns, and villages. If someone disregards the fundamental human value of safety, which is one of the most basic human needs, safety at school, on the street, in the park, wherever we are, if someone disregards this value, then to me, they are simply a moral dilettante. Well, Donald Tusk did just that, because he also called on Poles not to vote in a referendum asking whether they wanted security in their own country. No one can bring back the life of 24-year-old Claudia, but it is still possible to stop the madness of left-wing liberal migration policy, and it must be done before another tragedy occurs.